Welcome to the RedState Weekly Briefing. I am your host, Aaron Gardner. It is November, just before Thanksgiving, and we are here this week to talk about a few different things that have happened this week. One of the most important things that has happened this week is President Obama's immigration edict, his executive order to provide some limited new perks to illegal aliens. And I want to talk about that a little bit, and we're also going to get into a couple other issues this week. We're going to talk about Obamacare's latest woes, the Gruber lies, and also some of the information that we got just before the election that turned out not to be correct. In addition to that, we're also going to dive into a little bit of the Cosby rape allegations, and we're going to take a look at not only the Cosby rape allegations, but what also is out there that isn't being reported in the media, and how the coverage is kind of shows a bias in our media today. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. First and foremost, we want to talk about Obama's immigration executive orders and what exactly happened this last week. The president went on the air and tried to talk about different aspects of his executive order, and you can see that on the Daily Signal and a bunch of other places. But first, let's go around the table and introduce the guests that we have with us to talk about these different issues. As always, we have Thomas LaDuke from FTR Media. We have Joe Cunningham from RedState.com, and also we have Caleb with us, who's for some reason his camera isn't working tonight. He's having a technical issue with that. So, and
it seems like it suddenly just came on right when you're doing the introductions.
There you go. There you go. So Caleb Howe is all of a sudden dressed as a hipster for some reason. I'm sure
I wonder what the reason is.
I'm sure this has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with the fact that I asked everybody to maybe kick it up a notch and wear collared shirts on a show.
I forgot my name badge. Let's just get that in there. Is that good, Aaron? This is how we're going to get ratings, guys. We're putting jackets on. That's what makes people watch shows. Jackets.
Oh, the name badge is a good call. I've got a ton in here. Can I go grab one? No.
Yeah, you should, LaDuke. You should all grab name badges, and if you got some nerdy glasses, that would help as well, I'm sure.
True story, these are my actual reading glasses.
I got rid of my nerdy glasses when I was 7. That's 7 minutes ago.
About 7 minutes ago.
I put on dorky glasses, and Aaron shows up wearing the exact same pair, not as a joke.
Yeah, but I actually have to wear these to be able to see anything, and I bought them at Walmart. So the fact that I bought them at Walmart really...
Did you really want to see Joe that bad?
Horrible. What was that?
Did you really want to see Joe that bad?
Nobody wants that.
I intentionally blur his screen.
Of course you do. That's the type of person you are.
I can blur my screen, I think, from here.
We are all fancy tonight.
So speaking of blurs, Obama has blurred the lines with his executive order. What is it?
LaDuke was asking.
St. Martin's?
Oh, that's right.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh,
Lord.
I bought that on the cruise I was on last week.
On the cruise? Well, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody about the cruise you were on real quick.
I was on a cruise with the National Review guys. It was excellent. Of course, Jonah was great. Ned Ryan was great. But one of the most interesting talks was from, I believe his first name is Michael Ramirez, the editorial cartoonist, who was fascinating. And one of the things I noticed, one of my big takeaways, and I talked with a few people of this about this after hours, is that the group of people that are the core audience for something like the National Review cruise is an older group. And one topic that comes up in almost every talk is Ronald Reagan. And I just wonder if maybe we could update our talking points just a touch. from.
Well, I think it'd be hard to update our talking points when we really haven't had anybody since Reagan who was worth a damn. So, what are you gonna do?
Why do you hate George Bush, Lefty?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if George Bush was in the same category as Reagan. I'm not going to say that George Bush wasn't a good president, but I wouldn't put him in the same category as Reagan.
No.
No, that's reserved for people like Obama.
Right, exactly. LaDuke, you were going to say something, and you're live on screen right now, so why don't you talk?
I just wanted to say that Caleb Howe is an elitist.
Yes.
He gets to go on these cruises and everything, and I think it's inherently unfair to the rest of us, who, quite frankly, are smarter, better looking, and work harder than he's writing 24/7.
Well, it's funny you mention that because I think you should go on the cruise. In fact, I always was against the idea of going on a cruise, and I thought it was a dumb idea, especially for a conference. But the atmosphere of the cruise makes it very easy to come and go from the conference room. Nobody gets disturbed. It's a more laid-back atmosphere, and it made the talks feel more interesting. They were off the record, and it made it feel more interesting and interactive, and you felt like when we're talking to governors or to senators and they're talking on stage, it doesn't feel like at CPAC where they're just talking to you from on high. It's more of an interactive, folksy sort of feel, the way you might feel at a RedState gathering. So it really is worth considering going. If you can save up, you do have to save up. They're not cheap. I won my ticket, so I didn't have to pay, but in a raffle. But you can save up and go. I really think it's worth going to the National Review Cruise in particular because they really do have a lot of pull for lining up great speakers.
I have to just say that when you G-chatted
me... Oh, and
me,
Jim Garrity was great, by the way. Sorry.
You G-chatted me halfway through when you were in port somewhere teasing me that you were on a cruise. I secretly did hope that there was a tsunami and you got Poseidoned.
That did happen.
It did? And you survived?
You did that?
Oh, I did that. Because you hit me up
that
twice.
Made us like 2 hours late leaving port.
Yeah, you hit me up twice while you were in port going, I'm sitting here tanning it was just like, this guy's the biggest jerk on the face of the planet, and I know Aaron Gardner, so how can that be? But you did it. Bingo.
Well, and the kids were there with us, so it was me and Donna and the kids. Yeah. And it was Veterans Day, by the way, Aaron, while I was on board ship. And the cruise, not the National Review, they did their own thing, but the cruise also had a special ceremony just for veterans up in their lounge and everything. I went up there with Colonel Alan West was up there, and one of the people who got up to talk was a World War II veteran, and this guy just like amazingly old, like the kind of old where you sort of feel you're young being sucked away from you, and but he was with the group that liberated the first concentration camp to be liberated in Germany, and this guy was here on this cruise. Isn't that amazing?
That is absolutely amazing. So let's go ahead and get into the show a little bit and actually discuss the subjects that we do have to discuss here. Caleb, I know you just wrote a piece about immigration. Is that correct?
It is not live yet. I checked right before we went on, but I can give you the rundown.
Okay, why don't you just go ahead and lead us in with that rundown. Everybody, just so everybody knows, if you don't know this, I don't even know why you're watching this show, but just so everybody knows, this week Obama came out with his executive order, which expanded some of the people who won't be deported, is aimed at trying to keep families together, all these different things. But basically, it's constitutional overreach. It's not in his ability to do these things. It is the Congress's sole duty to handle this. So I want to hear from you, Caleb, what you got going, what you're reporting, and also I want to talk more about the whole entire subject of it and where we all stand on. So go ahead, Caleb.
Well, I think there was something really interesting this morning on This Week with George Stephanopoulos. He aired portions of his recent interview with President Obama, and he talked a lot about the idea of it being executive overreach. And in particular, he was saying that Republicans are telling you that you have said yourself that to take this action would be acting like an emperor. We've all seen by now you've all seen the video clips of Obama saying, "I'm not an emperor." And Obama says to Stephanopoulos, well, when I was talking about not being a king and not being an emperor, I wasn't really talking about what I did this week. I was talking about the idea of halting deportations altogether. That would have been overreach. What I did was much smaller and much more specific, and I've never referred to that as being an emperor. And right after he denied that that was what he was referring to, Stephanopoulos plays a video clip from a Google chat that the president had, just like we're having right now, where someone asked him literally, instead of halting deportations, what if you just made it for families so we could still get rid of criminals? Basically the exact thing that the president did this week. And he literally said, I'm not an emperor about that. He said, I can't do that specific thing because I'm not an emperor. He was talking about the exact action he took this week, and it's on video. And after the video was over, Obama had literally nothing. He goes, well, I just know that it's not working. And he fell back on the same argument that Democrats have been falling back on for the last week, which is, well, I wouldn't have had to do something if Congress had acted, which is really no defense at all. And that'll be, I've got the video up at Truth Revolt.
Thomas, let's go ahead and go to you for a moment. And let's talk about the actions that Obama has taken in this executive order. And I'm going to play devil's advocate here for just a minute. And I'm actually a little bit of a immigration squish. And realistically, to me, the actions that were taken so much, I would agree to just about any of those had they been achieved through a legislative process rather than an executive process. Do you feel like that is a point that needs to be discussed throughout all this, or do you think that it really doesn't matter? Either way, it's wrong.
I won't call myself an immigration squish like you, Mr. Gardner, but I do recognize that since the '86 Reform Bill, that both sides, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberals, have benefited from the system of getting people over here undocumented and paying them low wages. There were actually corporations back in the late 90s, 2000s that were setting up in Mexico little shanty areas telling people when to cross, when to avoid border detection, and what area to go to in Arizona and Texas and Southern California. And then
be fruit pickers?
Well, it's any sort of job.
That's what Obama said, fruit pickers.
I know, and the only thing, evidently, according to the president, that Hispanics that are here illegally can do, or anybody, basically, is pick fruit and make your beds in a hotel. So, but both sides have benefited from this. So do I feel like I should be kicking someone's butt back across the border that was told to come over here to make, the U.S. dollar, to be paid in dollars so they could send money home because they wanted a better life for their families? No, I feel pretty dirty about that. That's absolute BS. But on the other hand, this is now the fourth or fifth time since 1952 or 3 when Eisenhower actually had to reform this, that we've gone into some sort of comprehensive, not breaking it down bill by bill, but a comprehensive thing, which, by the way, was the same thing they did with Obamacare, has to be comprehensive. We can't fix the parts that are broken. We have to shove something through all at once. And now what are we going to do? We're going to basically load up a plan that's crap, that Chuck Schumer's endorsed, and the president's trying to play the margins and everything. While I feel bad about the people that are here, and I think there probably could be an argument made for the people that have come here and keep their noses clean, I think you have to fix the border, and the people who are quote unquote living in the shadows, they have to come forward, and on an individual basis, it'll be determined whether or not they can stay. It won't be fair, but then and then in addition to that, we have all heard the stories of people who are trying to come here legally and can't. That has to be reformed also because the system is totally skewered in one way right now.
Well, I think one of the major problems that we have, and this goes throughout so many different tentacles of government that it should be repeated almost daily, is that the government, when it functions as a bureaucracy, many times it has no care for the individual or the individual circumstance. It looks at people in groups, it looks at people in masses, and it makes big decisions. I mean, there are places like El Mirage, Arizona, that is basically, 99% probably illegal immigrants there. Now, the town happens to be doing fine. It's about 50 miles from the border. What do we do in a place like that? If we were to deport all the illegals, the town would become a ghost town and completely die. That doesn't help our people, our citizens. It doesn't help those who are trying to flee, systemic poverty in Mexico. It doesn't really help anybody. So, we got to come up with solutions that allow us to treat individuals as individuals and not treat everyone as a block group.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Joe, why don't we get you in here now? I don't know down where you live, Louisiana. I know there's some areas in the South that are more affected by illegal immigration than other areas in the South, and I'm not sure whether Louisiana is one of those or not. But can you tell me? You guys border with Texas. I'm sure you get some bleed over from there. How is it treated there in Louisiana? How's it seen? Okay, Joe is muted for some reason. We can't hear him.
Joe, why are you muted? Joe, you're like the quiet beetle. Start speaking up.
Well, let me kick it back to you for a minute, LaDuke. Now, you are the people's voice, as you often say.
I am. Voice,
and I think you and I are agreeing on this to a great extent, as far as the government isn't necessarily capable of treating these people as individuals rather than a bureaucracy, rather than just groups of people. So let me ask you, do you see up in places like Detroit and places like Michigan an angst about this, or do you think that people are more accepting up in the Northeast? What do you think?
You do have your influx during the spring. You see the truckloads of people coming up, and you know they're not from the area probably, and such, and work in the fields. So it affects this. Michigan is still largely an agricultural state. I think we produce the most cherries in the world. That's something that's a number one. Yay us. So I mean, do people think about it? Yeah. It just you hear the stories from people. One of our friends, Katrina Jorgensen, who has a show on FTR Radio, her husband's been trying to get over here for 3 or 4 years now, I believe. He's from Norway, and the State Department keeps goofing up. When you have people that are trying to get over here legally that have skills, and they see, wait a minute, all these people were just brought over, they came over, well, you're going to get people ticked off. And
yeah, look at Laura. You guys know Laura Theo, who came to the RedState gathering. She's a big-time blogger and tweeter. You guys can find her online if you're looking for her at Laura K. Fillault, Fillault. Her husband is from France, and he's gone through a tremendous process trying to get here, and now people are just right ahead of him. And it's like, why did he go through all this, and why did their family go through the hardships and the plane tickets that they've had to spend money on going back and forth, and all the stuff that they've had to do over these years, and that's just discounted now.
I've said to some of my friends that are advocates for you just have to do a blank check. I said, okay, let's do this, because the Democrats want them because they think they're going to get voters. The Republicans wanted it because they basically wanted their friends in corporations or big labor, just to simplify it, they have cheap labor. How about we do this? If you came over here illegally and you're fine, you haven't done anything, you just tried to raise a family and everything's fine, you can become quote-unquote a green-carded citizen, but you can never vote. Chuck Schumer's head will explode on that. The Democrats will never.
You told me that before, LaDuke. I remember mentioning that when we were up in Detroit. Me and you and Aaron were up there for a Franklin Center event, and you were talking about that exact idea. I remember that. That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Well, I think the problem with that is you end up getting into a silly 14th Amendment arguments, and it becomes a big court case that goes to the Supreme Court and everything like that.
Well, I think that there's something to be said for introducing a bill that can't pass the Supreme Court muster in order to make a point. I mean, isn't that's something that's been done before? You're trying to say, look at the hole that we've got here.
As a point, to make a point, sure, it's great. I'm just saying, as a solution, it doesn't do much for us.
Like you're not talking about people who were born here. I'm talking about people that actually came here illegally. Because
it wouldn't matter. The 14th Amendment protection would end up being extended
once they become a citizen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have
become a citizen. You're not differentiated as a different kind of citizen. You're just a citizen.
Yeah. Well, there's no more natural born versus whatever citizen.
Okay. Yeah, I think what you're saying is to create a new class of citizenship that would be guest citizen.
Well, no, you have people that are living here on green cards. They've lived here for a number of years.
Oh, you're saying keep them on a green card.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, you have.
Keep them on a green card. What I'm saying is they wouldn't become citizens. They wouldn't be given citizenship and just not have the right to vote.
Okay,
they
but what about
citizens or have the right to vote?
What about Obamacare?
Right, and that's where the thing comes in. Is are they then, if they're just green card holders, are they able to take part of the entitlement systems that are offered in the United States for citizens, or are they not? And if we do give them those benefits and claim them to be some special type of citizen, then we get into that 14th Amendment argument.
One thing I wanted to mention,
the vote away from them.
When you mentioned that we were going to be talking about this, one thing I always think is important is when people on the right discuss this, is to always point out, notice how we are looking at the various complicated sides of this issue. On the one hand, the philosophical point of view that these are people who are here trying to build a better life for themselves. What would you do if you were in a place that was overrun with drug cartels, where it was impossible for you to build a better life for your children, where you couldn't hope for a better future for them, and knowing right across the border is a land of opportunity where your kids can lead happier, healthier, more productive, longer lives? Wouldn't you want to bring them there? Wouldn't you want to do that? We wrestle with that, as well as, like Laura's situation, what about the people who've been trying to do it legally? And all of the other attendant issues that come with immigration. When we debate it on the right, we discuss all of these things in good faith. And when people on the left discuss it, they just call you a racist, and that's the end of the discussion.
There's one other thing that I think you have to that is part of the equation that a lot of people don't talk about. The United States of these Americas right now is capped out at about 320 million people. We're not growing. People are not having tons of kids anymore. All right. Now, what Aaron brought up about the social programs and what have you, more and more people are now going into that retirement phase, 55 plus. If we don't have an influx of new people, which under this economy that the president's created has not happened, more people are dropping out of the workforce than actually jobs being created. If we don't have people that are coming in to do whatever job, not just picking fruit and making beds, Mr. President, but any sort of job that is paying taxes into the system, this is going to crash sooner rather than later. And all of the models that the CBO is based about 15, 20 years for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, it's going to happen a hell of a lot sooner than that, because we need an influx of people. The country needs to grow and be creating a larger tax base rather than people becoming,
honestly, is there any better group of people to bring in than immigrants who are anxious to come here, and they're coming here because they want to work, not because they don't want to work. People are coming here, immigrants are coming here because they want to raise their family, because they embrace the values of being with their children, giving them better lives, hope for the future, all the things that Americans traditionally espouse, especially the Hispanic immigrants, embrace these same ideas. What better group of people to help build America for the future than immigrants?
And one other thing to throw in here, and to kind of lead into our next segment here, is if the Obama administration, their intent may not just be to get these people as voters, but their intent may be to get them in and get them on Obamacare to prop it up at this point, because Obamacare is having a hard time. We just found out just this last week that a lot of the acclaimed new signups for healthcare that were put under Obamacare and promoted were actually standalone dental plans. And we've had multiple lies come from the administration on Obamacare, and we've had multiple lies from this Jonathan Gruber guy who we spoke about last week with Philip Kirpin on here. We're going into what is going to be a huge Supreme Court case looking into all these different aspects of Obamacare. With all the stuff that is out there now, when the Supreme Court finally looks at this and takes on the Howe case and everything else that happens and puts it all together, I think Obamacare is at risk of getting tossed out. And I just wonder if getting all of these illegals in here and letting them stay here isn't maybe to get those people to eventually become Obamacare recipients and prop up Obamacare.
Prop up the numbers.
Yeah.
Can Joe talk yet, by the way?
Joe, are you? Oh, Joe's with us. Excellent. Joe, let's go ahead and go to you with that one then. Let's start with you with illegals on Obamacare. Could it be used to prop it up? And what do you think about the overall woes of Obamacare that we've seen over the last month and especially over the last couple of weeks with Gruber revelations?
Tell us how you know.
I don't feel anything anymore. If you look at the states where immigration is like the biggest issue, you look at Texas, you look at some of the border states. About half the border states with Mexico that you have the big immigration problem are red states, which are ones that did not go into the state exchange, that did not open state exchanges. So if you have this issue where the Supreme Court says that the federal subsidy is not part of the law, then you don't get that buffer. You don't get that many people who are signed up to Obamacare because the states don't have it. It's not allowed according to the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court decides to go with it and say, yeah, the Congress meant to include the federal subsidy along with the state subsidies, then yeah, they could prop it up.
Now the question is if there's enough illegals who get onto the program in between now and the Supreme Court deciding, the federal subsidy is illegal, what does that sway the court? Do we get, 7 million illegal aliens signing up in these red states on the federal exchange, getting the subsidy and putting us all on the hook, and the Supreme Court then says, hey, we can't be the guys to come out here and take insurance subsidies away from all of these people? Does it affect the court? Do we see something like that happen?
Do you know when the Supreme Court hears the case? Is it like in April or? I'm not sure. I'm not sure when they hear the case, if it's like this year or next year or whatever it is. If they were to listen to it, fairly soon, they were to hear arguments fairly soon, you would get a decision probably in late June, which means that there's only this one open enrollment period that's there right now. And if Obama's executive actions are only just now happening, you may not get that many people signing up. If hearing the arguments and everything comes later, then you could maybe have another open enrollment season where people could get onto Obamacare then, and maybe those numbers could support it. The Supreme Court is supposed to not care the politics behind it. They're supposed to look strictly at the legality, the wording of the law. What is in the law? What is the law supposed to do? They're not supposed to look. They're not supposed to really care. They're supposed to be kind of heartless in that sense, and that they're not supposed to care who's on it, how many people are getting subsidies through Obamacare. They're not supposed to care about that. They're only supposed to do that. Now we know that there are 4 bleeding heart judges, a couple of conservative judges, and you've got the couple swing guys in there as well. So you don't know exactly how it's going to play out. And the Supreme Court, it is a fool's game to try to guess what they're going to do.
Right. And now, LaDuke, let me go to you for a minute and talk to you a little bit more about just the complete deceit and dishonesty that we've seen in Obamacare. We know all these lies that Gruber has told. We know how he's come out and said that they relied on the stupidity of the people to not understand the process. We know that they called it a tax on insurance plans rather than a tax on people in order to keep it more popular. And now we know that they counted standalone dental plans as actual enrollments under Obamacare. What do you think this? Do you think people are to the point to where they just can't believe how silly these lies have gotten? I mean, we got Saturday Night Live tearing them up on the executive order, which we should have talked about when we were in that segment. But are we going to see Saturday Night Live come out and tear Obama up for just blatantly lying to the people over and over again about Obamacare?
Probably not. I mean, unless he goes totally south and dips to around 30%. Might see that then. I was a little bit surprised. I thought the skit last night was cute. It was a good attempt. I'm not sure with this cast. I haven't watched Saturday Night Live since before you were born, Aaron.
Kenan Thompson played Bill. I want to throw that out there.
Oh, okay. All right, good. But they generally won't go after somebody unless they're wounded if they have the same sort of ideology. Look, Obamacare sucks. It really does, and I hate to kind of be kind of a raining on the parade here of the glow that we all felt from November 4th, which I really didn't feel the glow. You just saw a gentleman come out and be blatantly honest because he thought no one was paying attention because the damage had been done, of how the Dems operate. They will slit your throat, tell you that they did you a favor, and let you bleed out, all the while telling you it's the best thing for you. I want to see the same type of ruthlessness in dismantling this program. Now, I know they can't pass it through the House and the Senate and get the president to sign it. I got that. But I want to see the same type of damn ruthlessness. Mitch McConnell, great job beating up your primary opponent, then beating up your general election opponent by 17 or 18 points. Use that type of savviness to put a fork in this thing piece by piece over the next 2 years, because the country
threaten his job. That's the difference. Matt Bevin and Allison Grimes threatened his job. Obamacare doesn't. Obamacare can line his pockets.
Well, and it's just like the immigration thing. As Eric has been pointing out all week and for a couple weeks, the Republicans, they'll act like they're going to do something, but they're not really going to do anything to stop this because they want the same damn thing in reality. They want bigger government. They want power. They want control. They don't want liberty, freedom, small government. They don't want any of that to be in place. That's reality.
There are people that do, though.
Yeah, there are a few.
Yeah, and I think we need to support them and basically make the argument rationally that, look, guys, you in Jonathan Gruber, you have a living, breathing example of what these people will do to get their end result. Let's have 50% of that. We don't need 100% of it and be deceitful. Let's just have 50% of that, because you know what? Even with everything that they did, and Gruber even pointed this out, the law was never popular.
Nope.
They lied their asses off about it. The law's never been popular. And each day that goes by where somebody else gets booted from a system that they liked because they weren't able to keep their plan if they liked it, Mr. President, you know what? More and more people become angry about it. And they should be using this right now, not just to fundraise, but to actually start to dismantle this monstrosity.
Right, and here's the thing: you have President Boehner or not President Boehner.
What? God, that was the scariest thing you could have said.
What? President McConnell wasn't on your mind right there? Oh, jeez, oh, Pete! Everybody, I just want you to take
a little bit in my mouth. I just puked a little bit in my mouth there.
That's the face of a man.
Speaker Boehner. Speaker Boehner. So we got Speaker Boehner, and he's coming out, and he's willing to call Obama an emperor over the immigration executive order, and then right after he calls him an emperor, he goes on vacation. So I mean, it seems like he maybe lacks the will to fight. And then on the other hand, you got Ted Cruz, both back in 2013 with the Obamacare filibuster and the shutdown of the government and everything that he did there, the don't blink effort, and what he did now, coming forward and reading basically the letter to was it to Cicero or you know, he's the guy who's leading and saying, let's fight this. Let's do these things to make sure we counteract Obama on Obamacare, on immigration, on all these different things. And it doesn't matter what he is. It seems that Ted Cruz is a solid leader on these things and a vocal leader, and that's what we need now. We don't need these people who will be vocal, call Obama an emperor, and then chart their flight to the vacation islands. It's just too hypocritical for people to take.
Let me play devil's advocate, Aaron, because on Friday, the House of Representatives and their direct legal
The
authority.
vacation islands. So, where's that?
I don't know.
Look, he just called Speaker Boehner President Boehner. Leave him alone.
President Boehner is off to the vacation islands.
That's right.
It's just a generic set of islands where people vacation. Don't you know anything?
It's the island of misfit toys for politicians. What's the matter with?
It's just how poor people think about rich people. They're at vacation islands.
They're on the vacation islands, sipping Mai Tais.
The House just they're filing a lawsuit about this, about the executive orders that the president has done changing the law without the direction of Congress and everything. I mean, just wholesale changing the law like he has. I mean, is that enough? You know, I mean, that takes a little bit of guts because generally the branches don't sue each other. You know, this isn't like something that I think is just happening every day or even once a year in the country's history.
But a lawsuit really, I mean, does it have any real teeth? Can he actually really do anything with it? Honestly, I'm starting to think more and more that impeachment might be a workable solution. And people always get scared with that and say, "Oh, if we do that, we're going to lose 2016." And honestly, I'm not sure how we would lose 2016 because of that. So let's say we actually go for impeachment and we actually get it done, and we get our homeboy Biden as president, and then we get a nice, beautiful primary between Biden and new car smell Clinton and new car smell Warren and new car smell this person and that person. I think it'd be absolutely epic and beautiful, and I think we probably could win against that field.
You asked how it could lose. Let me two terms: Romney 2012 Orca.
Oh well, yeah. If we run Romney again, we might as well all just pack it up and commit seppuku because we're all too dumb to live.
I'll drink to that.
So, all right, let's transition into our last segment. We got off to a late start today. We're gonna go a little past 8 o'clock to make up for it, but we got about 15-20 minutes left on the show. So, this last segment that I want to talk about deals with Bill Cosby and the allegations of rape against him. There's two key posts that you probably would want to read on this. One is from Rolling Stone, and it starts off with a jewel of a sentence that I'm not going to bother with right now, but the other one is the Washington Post feature on it. Now, both of these have different collections of information and give out different allegations. Somewhere like 16 different allegations are out there from different women who have said that he's tried to pursue them sexually, or
which is only 42 fewer than Bill Clinton.
Right. That's a point that must be pointed out each and every time we discuss this. Cosby's no Clinton. Clinton is a much worse serial rapist than Cosby could ever be if these allegations are true. Now, with Cosby, one of the things that I want to note in this is he's been attacked in some ways as America's happy, white America's happy Negro, I guess you could say. And it to me, immediately when I see the Rolling Stone article basically led this way, it basically, cast Cosby as the safe, happy white man's black man, and that's why these allegations are so shocking to everybody, and nobody wants to believe them. And I think casting it like that right off the bat, I mean, puts it in a political and racial context that I'm not necessarily comfortable with. But there's more to it than that. On the other side of on the other side of this story, we have not this story. On the other side of this, the ledger, we have another story that's out there, where the co-founder of the Human Rights Campaign who, Human Rights Campaign is all about same-sex marriage, gay marriage, homosexual marriage, whatever you want to call it. That's what they're about. They're about getting that into society and have it not only be accepted, but not only tolerated, but accepted by society. Now, this co-founder is a homosexual as well, and now there are charges against him having sex with a minor male child. Now, this is something that we've been told again and again and again from the activist homosexual left that just doesn't happen. Gay homosexual males are not pedophiles. They just aren't. There's no proof that they ever are, and they just aren't. And yet now we have these charges going on. Now, if you were to pick up your newspaper in any city, you probably wouldn't have heard about these charges. There's very little on the internet about these charges. And yet we have America's safe white man's black man with 50-year-old allegations of rape, and it's blasted on every front page. Now, the other thing to consider with this Human Rights Campaign is this founder, he was a big-time friend and donor to Barack Obama. So I want to come to you first on this, Caleb. What do you think about the media bias there that's blatantly shown by
I have a great
over-covering one and not covering the other?
I have a great story that I was going to tie into this, but I'm having a computer crash that may end this hangout for me any second, so you should probably give me a second here.
Okay, well then let's give you a second. LaDuke, let's go to you. Now, you've known to make a joke or two, and you've been around comedians in your professional life and whatnot. So, the allegations against Cosby, some of them sound like, hey, it was the '60s and the early '70s. A lot of it sounds like, hey, maybe it could have happened. He had that famous comedic bit about Spanish Fly. So, what do you think about those points for the allegations against Cosby? And then on the other side, what do you think about the lack of coverage from the Human Rights Campaign co-founder and the charges against him?
The only thing I'm worried about is that at some point somebody's going to come out and say Bill Cosby did inappropriate things with Jell-O pudding pops, which is going to ruin my childhood. And then I'll be extremely upset.
Well, you've just ruined my appetite, that's for sure.
No. I'm not surprised. Okay, I think both of these things, I look at them separately. Cosby is somebody who's had a #1 rated TV show. He broke barriers back in the '60s. He's been a Hollywood mogul. I mean, pretty much up until recently, anything the guy touched was gold. So that this has come out, and now that it seemed like he's vulnerable, and it seems like a lot of people are thinking, okay, now's my time to come out with my story. That doesn't necessarily shock me. I mean, if you follow how Hollywood or any of this stuff works. I have no idea whether or not it's true. There's a lot of smoke, which generally denotes that there's a fire. But quite honestly, I don't know. The damn fact of the matter is anybody could be accused of anything, and you get 3 or 4 people together and come out with a story and regurgitate the same thing, and boom, you're guilty in the public of court opinion. The man's career is ruined, whether or not he did anything or not.
Well, that's an interesting. Let me jump in here. That's an interesting point that you make. When you go over to the Washington Post article on Bill Cosby and all these allegations, they have a neat graphic there where they actually show a timeline of Bill Cosby's career, and they show all the different points on it where he won these different things, and they show life events like him getting married, and they show all these different data points on his life in time. And then they also show all the different accusations of sexual abuse and when they happened. And it's very interesting to line those things up and look and see every time he had a new deal coming out, every time he was winning an award, every time a series premiered, that's when one of these things apparently happened. So it's an interesting timeline to look at, just anecdotally, to see whether or not these things were planned around certain events in his life. And the fact is, right now he has a bunch of deals that were in the works, and all of a sudden those deals are all evaporating for him because of these allegations. So that's always something that makes me question and wonder whether or not the allegations are true. Then, in addition to that, let me throw out this one other thing. One of the situations that was explained, and I believe this was Miss Tarshish who explained this in the Washington Post article, that he gave her a ride home from work in his Rolls Royce and took her down to the beach, and then there he opened up a briefcase which had all these different compartments and had pills and all these different things. And it just seems so Hollywood to me and so surreal to me. It was like the scene, one of the opening scenes out of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where they're driving through the desert, and then he opens up this briefcase, and it's, multicolored uppers, downers, zoomers, twisters, all this stuff, different stuff that he says. And I have a hard time picturing Bill Cosby hopping into a Rolls Royce, taking a girl down the beach, showing her all these pills, and then when she says she doesn't want any, he just starts grabbing her breasts, chases her out of the car, chases her down the beach, and then takes her home, and they never see each other again.
What? Any pills? Camille's the only one that I ever make squeal. I basically, and to go to your second point about the human rights dude, this doesn't shock me that the mainstream isn't. I mean, if it wasn't for Phil Kerpen's group finding the gent and helping spread the word on the Gruber videos, ABC, CBS, and NBC have hardly shown that. Okay, there's a lot of examples over the past 4 or 5 years that the mainstream media is protecting, their ideological bedmate in Barack Obama or Joe Biden or Ted Kennedy. It goes back for years. So to even I'm not relying at all on the mainstream media to do anything. You basically have to, when something with what Phil and American Commitment did in helping bring this out, you've got to take the initiative upon yourself, spread it amongst your friends, at Facebook, Twitter, whatever, talk about it. Because ABC, CBS, and NBC aren't going to do it unless they absolutely have to. There's just no doubt about it. That's baked into the Jell-O pudding pot. There's no getting around that now.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right, right on target there. There's no way to get around that, especially if the story is counter to the narrative that the left has presented to society. Then it's high likelihood the mainstream media isn't going to touch it, and this especially is one of those ones because they've pushed so hard to make sure that homosexuality and pedophilia are totally separate and never touch each other, that to have this incident occur now and to have charges against a Human Rights Campaign co-founder for being a pederast, basically, it's really shocking. And I'd be amazed if we see any story on any mainstream media unless he gets convicted of something. Now, Caleb, are you back with us? Are you able to speak on this subject a little bit now?
Yeah, well, I want to say one of the things that you were just talking about, LaDuke, is the way that they protect those who are their ideological fellow travelers. One of the things that they do is they sit on stories. They sit on stories until such time as they can do the least damage. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would, yeah.
All right, well,
Absolutely.
the AP, I'm trying to find it right now. The AP had a semi-scoop, and it went viral about nope, it just crashed again. Anyway, the Associated Press has an interview. I'll have to put the link in the chat afterward, where essentially they promised.
I think we just lost Caleb again.
What you just said isn't going to be part of what we air, and they're airing themselves, telling him we're not going to air this. Only they did. So the question is, what are their journalistic ethics when it comes to someone who is not on their side? There's a lot more detail to it than that, but I can't even see you guys right now because my browser has completely crapped the bed. So if you can't hear me, that's why.
It's okay, Caleb. We got you. Most of what you said came through, but I'll just reiterate your point. Basically, what Caleb was saying is that Cosby sat down for an interview with the AP, and they brought up some of these allegations, and he answered some questions. It was supposed to be off the record, and he reiterated that to the AP. Hey, this isn't going to be on broadcast, right? And they went ahead and broadcast it anyhow, along with Cosby actually saying, hey, this isn't going to be broadcast, right? And them agreeing to that. So it does raise the question of the ethics of journalism in this case and in many cases overall. Now, we're about 10 minutes left, not even 10 minutes left. We're about 6 minutes left in the show. And I want to get Joseph back.
My screen just came back. I can see you.
Ah, nice. I want to get Joseph back looped in here, and I want to actually go back to the immigration for just a minute to get that question answered about Louisiana and how you guys will feel about immigration there. And after you're done answering the immigration question, I'd like you to go ahead and jump in on this Cosby versus HRC issue as well. So go ahead and answer on the immigration first.
Immigration is enough of an issue here that in David Vitter's 2010 re-election campaign, he ran a bunch of stuff against his opponent, then Charlie Melancon. Mary Landrieu and Bill Cosby both ran ads this time concerning it. So it is enough of an issue where they feel that they can run ads and get some support out of it, but it's not a terribly big thing. Yeah, there is some bleed over from Texas, but it's not as big an issue as it would be like next door in Texas and along that border. Now, as far as the Bill Cosby thing goes, 10 years ago, we had a lot of these same allegations come out, and everybody basically, we had a brief moment of outrage and it was done. And we kind of have the same thing about Woody Allen. But these are sticking a lot more. First of all, the sheer volume of accusations. But think about it, and I'll link this on Twitter in a little while. Cracked.com, of all places, has a wonderful essay about why we all ignored the Bill Cosby rape charges. And it comes down to, when it comes to Woody Allen, when it comes to the HRC guy, we deal with those on an emotional level. Not on an emotional, on an intellectual level. We deal with those. Woody Allen's art is something that we, deal with intellectually. We process it intellectually. The HRC guy, we think about that intellectually because of the fact that the HRC is something the average person doesn't know about. But when you get to Bill Cosby, the Cosby Show is something that everybody grew up with. Everybody grew up with Bill Cosby in their homes, giving them valuable family lessons. So this hits us on a much more emotional level. Now, yeah, the media storm on this is, there are factors that can make you think that, yeah, there is some media bias going into this as well. They're gonna ignore the HRC guy and they're gonna focus on Cosby. Cosby, can be seen as like the antithesis of what the Sharptons and the Jacksons push out there. The Cosby Show pushed a black family into the spotlight that did not go through the struggles that Sharpton and Jackson were kind of pushing as what every black person was going through. So in a way, you can make that claim.
No.
Time,
let me stop you there, though. It didn't show a black family that didn't go through the struggles. It showed a black family that had overcome the struggles.
I don't think it's either of those things. I think that the point of the show was to say that there is another aspect to African American life in America besides the struggle. It was irrespective of the struggle. It didn't matter if they had the same struggle or they didn't. That wasn't what the show was about. It was to say there's more to life than just the Sharpton angry all the time point of view.
Well, what I was going to say, Caleb, is they had overcome the struggle of being black and had accepted the struggle of being human.
Right, but I don't know that they had overcome anything. It just wasn't part of the show.
No. I'm not saying that the individual characters overcame it. I'm saying that the show itself overcame the idea of struggling as a black versus just struggling as a human.
I'm going to need you to put on a tuxedo from that point to really land.
All right, excellent.
Let's boil this down, okay? The only reason the Cosby Show was successful because Lisa Bonet was hot.
Well, and that actually makes me ask another question. Considering Lisa Bonet was on the show, why haven't we heard her come out and say anything? Because I mean, if Cosby was that bad, why would she have not been?
Well, now you sound like LaDuke saying if if Ebola is contagious, why didn't more people get it?
By the way, why?
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
You can't prove
If
something
it's
by
right
the absence
there.
of something.
Well, I'm just saying it would surprise me if she wasn't.
If it's good enough for your Cosby argument, then it's good enough for LaDuke's Ebola argument.
Apples and apples.
As the voice of the... Let's just get back. Lisa Bonet was hot. That's the only reason that show was successful. The minute that she went off to whatever the real world, whatever it was, the show was canceled like 2 years later. Nobody cared anymore.
Different world.
Right? Whatever. Who cared?
I like that show.
Was hot. That's all.
I liked that show.
Nobody cared about Bill Cosby was a doctor that was black and he
Also,
worked.
the other girl was hotter on Different World.
Who? I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't watch a Different World.
The mean one.
Okay, 'cause Lisa Bonet was on there for like a half a season, and then she left because she married Reggie Blue, and she got into the bad scene. But who cared? That's the only reason that show was popular. She was hot.
No. I think you're incredibly wrong on this. I think you're incredibly wrong. I think most families in the 80s loved that show as a family show. And I know my family, we made an event out of making sure to record the season opener each year because the beginning of the show would be different each year, and it was a special thing. So
I don't think there's any question as to why the show was popular. The main thing that made that show popular in the 80s was that at that time, with fewer channels, the parents of the house decided what you watched, and what the parents liked about that show was Cosby always had the last word, and the kids always had to get in line. And that's what they wanted out of their own kids.
That's right. But Caleb, Joe, can you just imagine going back to the garden household there in the 80s? Everyone's sitting around the VCR as it clicks on taping and all gathering around the campfire. the fire as they watch.
I was born in 1988, so no, I can't imagine that.
Shut up, Joe.
My gosh.
Oh, God.
And with that...
Open your mouth.
With that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show this week.
I remember TV in the 70s.
Yeah, right.
LaDuke remembers it in the 40s.
That's right.
LaDuke remembers radio.
Sure.
But let's go ahead and wrap up the show this evening. I want to thank everybody for coming on once again. Thank everybody for watching us, the Red State Weekly Briefing. It's been great. We had a blast. Thomas, go ahead and kick that music, and we will start telling everybody where we can be found. Caleb, let them know where you can be found on the internets.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, @Caleb Howe, spelled like it sounds, Throat Warbler Mangrove. Also, I have a new website where I post articles periodically. It is called rabblewriter.com, and I write for Truth Revolt and Red State and The Right Scoop and Facebook, and sometimes I just yell at people in parking lots.
Joseph, let the people know where they can stalk you.
Oh, also you can find me on Cruises in the Caribbean.
You can find me on the internet, on Twitter @Josie_Esquire, and you can find me on Red State.
Oh, Lord.
Look at that.
Now
Sinatra.
Now he actually looks like he's from Louisiana. LaDuke, where can the people find you? Where can the people find their voice, LaDuke?
Yeah, that'd be Irish Duke too on the Twitter. I was just smashed because some people think that you have to find anything making fun of the president on SNL funny, or you're not a conservative. And then also FTR Radio, Bourbon on the Rocks, Monday, Friday, 8 p.m. Only on FTR Radio.
All right, I am Aaron Gardner, managing editor of RedState.com. This has been the Red State Weekly Briefing. And one last note, make sure to join us on Thursday nights for a new show on Red State called Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Friends. Make sure to check it out.
They wear suits, so they're obviously better.
Yes.